In today's demo, we're going to show you how to configure file system quota. Log in as root. Now notice that /home has currently 112 megabytes available. Just like in any web mail, you will be limited to a certain size of mailbox. We will not want any user to hog up the limited space currently available. Thus, we can implement a file system quota to limit the file space that each user can have in the home directory. To configure file system quota, first edit the file nano/etc fstab. This is the file system table. Navigate to the line where /home is being mounted. By default, /home is mounted as read write. We will configure as quota file system for /home. In this case, we're stating that /home will be mounted as quota file system. Save the entry, Ctrl X, yes. Now we have to make changes to the etcfs tab, so we need to remount the /home file system. Do a mount command, and if you grab for home, you'll notice that now /home has USR quota set beside being read-writable. USR quota is the user quota. We need to next initialize the quota database by doing a quota check -mc/home. You can do a man quota check and look at the option what does -mc do. Basically, it's the creations of the user quota database. When quota check finish initializing, you can check that there's a file called a quota user. This is the quota initialized database. After we have initialized the database, we can turn on the quota file system by doing a quota on -a. We will edit the quota for the user ID called student. If you have not added student user, you can do so by doing a user add student. Now let's do a wrap quota -a. This is to report the quota currently for every user in the system. As you can see, student currently uses 4 kilobytes of the file systems, and currently he has no threshold set for both soft and hard limit. Similarly, for file limits, student currently have 4 files in his home directory, and he has no file limit set for both soft and hard limit. We will configure the block limits for student. To do that, do editor equal to nano, and use the edit quota command, which is add quota on student. This will say that edit quota will use the editor nano to edit the block limits of student. As you notice, the alignment is a bit out. You can realign. The blocks here indicates that currently student uses up to 4 blocks, which is 4 kilobytes of file space in /home directory. It does not have any soft or hard limit set. We will set the soft limit to be for student to be 400 kilobytes or 400 blocks. This is to say that whenever student has occupied 400 kilobytes of file space, you'll be given a warning by the system. we will set 500 kilobyte for the hard limit. This means that if student ever exceeds 500 kilobytes or use up to 500 kilobytes of the file system, student will not be able to write to the file system anymore. The system will prompt a write fail to student. The inodes here denotes the number of files that student has currently, which is 4 files in the file system, and you similarly can do a soft limit, let's say 10. That means student will be given a warning by the system if he has created 10 files in the home directory. The hard limit similarly, you can put a hard limit maybe of 20, so student cannot create beyond 20 files. But in this exercise, we will just set the block limit for student. Now be very careful when doing the entry. Make sure that every single entry is within the lines. Example, if accidentally I bring the 0 down to the next line and I try to save the file, I'm doing Ctrl X, yes. Now you'll get an error message saying that can't read quotas from file. In this case, simply redo the process again by doing editor nano add quota student, and you have to re-enter everything again. So we'll set the soft limit for block to be 400 and the hard limit to be 500. So ensure that this is a single entry on a single line, and then Ctrl X to save. You notice that there's no error indicated now. If you do a wrap quota -a again, you'll see that now student still has 4 kilobyte use, but he has a soft limit set to 400 kilobytes and the hard limit set to 500 kilobytes. There's no soft and hard limit set for the file limits for student. Now, how do we test whether the file system quota is working and limiting the student file size? Okay. You can SU to student. Right, now student home directory. We'll create a file that is of 400 kilobytes in file size by using a command called dd. Or before we do that, student also can check its current quota by doing the quota command. So I can see student has a quota soft limit of 400 and hard limit of 500, currently using 4 kilobytes of file space. Now we'll create a 400 kilobytes files using a dd command. if is the input file, /dev0 is a special device file that is filled with 0. We will fill the output file. We will call this output file 400k underscore file1.txt, and the block size of this file is equal to 400, and we only do one write, which is count equal to 1. So what this does is that zeros will be written into this 400k underscore file1.txt, and this file size will be 400 kilobytes in size. As you can see, there was no warning messages because we have not exceeded the soft limits of 400s. We only have just now, instead of 400 kilobyte, we just written 400 bytes. Now let's try again by doing 400 kilobyte instead of 400 bytes. So we'll say the block size is now 400 kilobytes, and we press enter, and you notice that now there's a warning messages being displayed to tell user that he has exceeded the soft limit. Now if we do a quota, you can see that now the block size for user is 407, which is exceeding the 400 soft limits that we have set previously. Now if we do ls minus l, you can see that there's this file 400 kilobytes, which has a file size of 400 kilobytes. So the current quota is now 407. Now let's try to exceed the hard limit by doubling this file or duplicating this file 400k underscore file 1. So effectively we will get 800 kilobytes file space used in the home directory. Okay, we'll copy to a file called file2.txt. Notice that instead of warning, you get a write fail now, and you have exceeded this quota. Do ls minus l, you notice that the last file that we're trying to write does not have 400 kilobyte file size, but rather just partially written. And if you do a quota again, you can see that now that the quota for user has reached the hard limit of 500. Similarly, if you exit from student and you do a wrap quota minus a, which is can only be written or run by root itself, you notice that now student has used up the 500 hard limit file space given. Now what happens if user want to write more files? So now there's two options user can do. One is to clean up user home directory by removing unnecessary files, or user can request for root to increase its quota in the add quota command. Alternatively, root also can turn off the quota by doing quota off command minus a. In this case, the quota file system will be turned off, and will no more be in effect. This ends the demo.